Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. I hope you are all well and enjoying this Sunday, the day after Arsenal booked their spot in the FA Cup fourth round with a 2-0 win against Newcastle at the Emirates last night. It wasn't pretty at times, it went to extra time, but they got there in the end thanks to that man, Emile Smith-Rowe, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang finishing things off right at the end. First of all, apologies, I didn't get to do my player ratings after the game. It was so cold last night. By the time the game finished, I was absolutely frozen to my core, and I just couldn't handle even getting my camera out and doing any of that sort of stuff. I just wanted to sit there, wait for the press conference, and stay as warm as I possibly could. So apologies for that. So I thought I'd pop on this morning, talk about the game in a little more detail, look at what Mikel Arteta had to say afterwards, and I'll give my player ratings at the end for anyone who really cares about them at this point after the game. So let's start with a win, shall we? It was a win. That's the main thing. When you're in cup football, that's all that really matters, is getting through to the next round. And Arsenal did that. Like I said earlier, it wasn't the prettiest of performances. Certainly not the free-flowing sort of football we've seen from Arsenal in recent weeks in the Premier League. But they did make changes. With Mikel Arteta sort of shuffling his pack a little bit, as you would expect, and almost going back to the sort of team that we'd seen during that miserable run of form before Christmas, with Willian coming in, with Pepe coming in. And it was a kind of bit of a throwback to those sort of performances that we'd seen before Christmas. It was pretty slow. The enthusiasm that Saka and Smith-Rowe had brought to the team in recent weeks wasn't there. They weren't awful, Arsenal. I still think they were quite, by some distance, the better side. But they certainly weren't attacking with that sort of fluidity that we've seen from them recently. Willian was dreadful. Again, really poor performance from him. Pepe, he was nowhere near as bad as Willian, and I thought he was pretty bright in the first half, especially. Faded a little bit after the break, but he wasn't terrible. It was just a pretty average performance from Pepe, but nothing on the scale of Willian. But neither of them really set the game alight at all. And Saka and Smith-Rowe would have been sitting on the bench, certainly not concerned about losing their starting spot for the Premier League game against Crystal Palace on Thursday night. Let's put it that way. And Arsenal sort of huffed and puffed. They had some chances, didn't take them. They could have gone out in the last minute of extra normal time. Bernd Leno, who was in goal instead of Runarsson, making a brilliant save to deny Andy Carroll, and that was the cup tie was there for the taking for Newcastle. Then had that gone in, there was no time for Arsenal to come back, and they would have been out at the first stage of their FA Cup defence. But Bernd Leno doing what he needed to do, and certainly showing that Mikel Arteta was right to start him ahead of Runarsson, I think, in that one moment of the game. Arsenal by that point had brought on Smith-Rowe and brought on Saka, and they had started to look better going forward. And then obviously Smith-Rowe popped up with a goal, brilliant goal in the second half of extra time to break the deadlock, and Aubameyang scoring just after that to kill the game off. The fact that it took Smith-Rowe and Saka coming on to really spark Arsenal into life, I think, shows you the reliance they've suddenly found on these two young players. They transform this Arsenal side in terms of their energy, in terms of their movement, in terms of their attacking intent. It's just a completely different team when those players are on the pitch than when they're not. And whether that's a worrying sign for Mikel Arteta or a positive sign, I'm not quite sure, because you don't really want to be relying on a 19 and 20-year-old. But also, it's a very, very good thing that you've got that in your armoury now, and you've got those sort of players and those young players who clearly are very, very special. But Willian is becoming a real problem. He went off after about 66 minutes yesterday. It was just poor throughout. He had that one shot in the first half after Aubameyang had his effort saved, and Willian latched onto the follow-up. You could see his confidence is low by the fact he didn't take it on his right foot, and by the time he'd taken it on his left foot, the angle had narrowed and just slashed wildly at it. It went miles into the stands, and kind of just summed him up and summed up where he is at the moment at Arsenal. It's just not happening for him, and he's becoming a real problem. Arsenal invested £30 million in Willian over the next 3 years in terms of his contract. Yes, it was a free transfer, but they're giving him big wages, and he's here for 3 years, and he has not had the start to his career that we all would have hoped, that Mikel Arteta and Edu certainly would have hoped. I think we all looked at that deal and thought, look, 3 years is probably too much, but if you get 18 good months out of him at the start of the contract, then he's probably going to end up being just about value for money. But he's been anything but at the moment. He's been absolutely awful. In anything, he's getting worse, and it's becoming a real problem. He's miles behind now Emile Smith-Rowe in the pecking order, and the fact that Smith-Rowe's only 20, only a few weeks ago, hadn't started a Premier League game for over a year, and he's miles ahead of Willian now in the pecking order, and deservedly so. And that's a big problem, because suddenly Arsenal, who have spent so much time trying to reduce their wage bill, that this summer's going to be a major breakthrough in that regard, with the like of Ozil, Socrates, Mustafi, Kolasinac potentially going as well on a permanent. They're going to suddenly take huge money off that wage bill, but yet it looks like they're lumbered with another aging player on a long-term deal who's going to be incredibly difficult to shift. So it's a real problem for Mikel Arteta, and one that it must be worrying him more and more with each week that goes by. I mean, I did ask Arteta about it after the game in a press conference. I said, look, just how much of a worry and a problem is Willian's form becoming? And he said, I mean, he backed his man, as you would expect. He's not going to sit there and suddenly go, look, yeah, he's rubbish. He's just not going to do that. He said, look, I think he was improving. The other day he came on and was really well against West Brom. He's been out as well because he was ill, so he's missed 2 weeks of training and football. Today was the first time he had started a game since. He had some good moments. Not sure about that. He had some other moments when he needed more help sometimes, and some decisions weren't the best, but we're going to keep trying with him. He's showing in training how much he wants it. It's about keeping his confidence in him. We know the player he is. It's about time too. But again, that answer it goes against kind of what the whole signing was about, because it's not really about giving Willian time. If you're bringing in a 32-year-old who's been in the Premier League for 7 years and you're giving him a long-term contract, it's because you want him to hit the ground running. There needs to be no time to adapt, basically. He's living in London before, so he doesn't have to. It's a new city. Yes, you've got him a little bit of leeway to get used to new teammates and things like that, but really you're signing him to hit the ground running. Mikel Arteta said it at the time of the signing, and he said it after the Fulham game on the opening day when Willian actually had a decent performance, and he said, look, he doesn't need much time to adjust. He can just come back in. So now in January to be saying, look, it's about time, and we're going to keep trying with him, just doesn't really. It's not what that signing was about at all, and it is becoming a real problem. And he doesn't look happy. He just is not showing any sort of sign that he's suddenly going to come into form again. And you just worry now that he's going to become, the longer this goes on, he's just going to become more and more of a millstone around Arsenal's neck in terms of that wages. And just as you get Ozil off the books, suddenly you're going to have Willian there for the next 3 years. And it's just looking like one problem goes and another one suddenly arrives. And yeah, it's difficult. I asked him as well about him. I said, like, how are you going to keep his confidence up when now he's well behind Emile Smith-Rowe, a 20-year-old in the pecking order? And he said, I think when the team is winning, it's easier because you have a little bit more time to do that process. He needs to build those relationships with some players. Today he played in a slightly different position as well. He will get there. So Mikel Arteta backing his man, as you would expect. But I think even he, when he's privately sitting at home watching video footage of the games, he must be very concerned about Willian's form and exactly where things are going to go from now with the Brazilian. From one Brazilian to another, and really disappointing news about Gabriel Martinelli. We all saw it yesterday. I was just streaming on here, actually on YouTube, doing my live sort of broadcast from the warm-ups, and it's pretty much as soon as I turned it on, suddenly you saw this guy on the floor over on the far side. Couldn't see who it was at first, and then it emerged it was Gabriel Martinelli. He'd twisted his ankle during the rondos in the warm-up, and he was in tears going off the pitch. You could see that. He did jog off the pitch, so you were thinking, hopefully it's all right, it's not too bad. And Arsenal announced, they sort of sent a message around the press box that Nelson had replaced him in the starting 11, but it was purely just a precaution. So again, you thought, hopefully it's not too bad. But Mikel Arteta's comments after the game weren't too promising when it comes to Gabriel Martinelli. He said, I'm gutted. I was in my office before the game and one of the coaches told me that Gabby had hurt himself, that he twisted his ankle. I went to the medical room and he was in tears. He was in a lot of pain. We're going to have to see how it is. It didn't look good. He was in pain, so I imagine we're not going to have good news with him. We really want to know what's going on. He's a character and he wants to play the next game. He doesn't care and can handle pain, but I don't know. Hopefully there's nothing too serious, but to start with, it doesn't look good. It looks like Gabriel Martinelli will have his scan today on that ankle. We're speaking to Mikel Arteta tomorrow morning for his press conference for the game against Crystal Palace on Thursday, so it's an early press conference this week. Whether that comes too early to get definitive sort of answer on Gabriel Martinelli's injury, it probably will, so he might have to wait a little bit further into the week when it really emerges exactly what's gone on with Gabby. But real blow to him, real blow to Arsenal. He's just got himself back fit, just got himself back into the team. I was really excited to see that front line yesterday of Martinelli, Aubameyang and Pepe, and then suddenly for it to sort of not happen just before kick-off and to see him lying on the pitch like that and in tears as he went off, it was a real shame. And just fingers crossed he's not going to be out of action for too much longer, and we will see him sooner rather than later, because we all know what a massive impact he's had since he's come back from injury. And like I said, hopefully he's back on the pitch as soon as possible. One player who, again, wasn't in action last night was Thomas Partey. He is back fit. He is back fully training with Arsenal. We were hoping that maybe last night was going to be the game that we saw him back in action. Mikel Arteta resisted the urge, however, to bring him back in. But I asked Mikel after the game about it, and he said, we assessed the situation, how much training he's done, the boxes that he's ticked, and he was still a little bit short. Hopefully on Thursday, we might have him available in the squad. Let's see how he trains in the next couple of days, but he's looking really good at the moment. I think Arsenal are absolutely spot on with this one. They're in a good run of form at the moment. They don't really need to bring Thomas Partey in and take any chances. When we saw what happened last time he came back from the injury and what happened at Spurs and the setback he had, the last thing Arsenal want is anything like that happening again. So I can understand them completely taking their time with him. I did think we'd probably see him for about half an hour yesterday. Wasn't the case, but you think another good couple of days training in him this week, that Crystal Palace game, certainly an option to bring him back in. I doubt he'd start anyway. He's not going to throw him straight back into the starting 11. He's going to ease him back into action. But positive signs on Thomas Partey. And the fact he's coming back in to a winning team this time is a real bonus. When he came back last time, things were going badly. He was thrown in almost out of necessity, really, because of the form. But suddenly this time he's coming back in and the picture's completely different. Arsenal in a good run of form. Confidence is up. And I think that's going to be really beneficial as well, to be able to just whack Thomas Partey into that central midfield, into the middle of a winning team that's full of confidence, and you're going to see him excel, and you're going to see Arsenal get better and better, because he's going to absolutely transform this team. I am totally and utterly confident about that. One player who's not in action last night, obviously, was Mesut Ozil. I think we're going to see things progress this week in terms of Ozil's future. Things are sort of moving forward with Fenerbahce. Interesting moments yesterday before the game on social media on an account of a company, I think it's a charity that Ozil's part of, tweeted, we're delighted to announce Mesut Ozil's move to Fenerbahce is close, more news to come. That company had a link, there was a link to that company in Mesut Ozil's bio, but then it emerged that they'd changed their name, and maybe Ozil hadn't updated the bio and it was a fake account, and that someone had just seized on the old account and tweeted that, and there was a little bit of confusion. Chris Wheatley, who used to work with Mesut, he's now the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. I'm sure you'll know Chris, fantastic reporter. He obviously knows very well how things work in the Ozil PR machine, having worked as part of it. And he said when he was there at the time that Ozil's agent always said that his next move would probably be announced through one of his charities, because that raises the profile of the charity. So it's interesting. No one quite knows if it was fake or not yet, but I think there were meetings on Friday to try and progress that move forward about to Fenerbahce, and I think we're going to see some movement this week in terms of exactly what's happening. Again, like I said, Mikel Arteta's press conference tomorrow, he'll no doubt be asked about it, and it'll be interesting to see if he gives any sort of update to suggest that has moved forward. But hopefully we are coming to the end of the whole Mesut Ozil saga, and it will be completed sooner rather than later, because, as I've said in previous videos, I just think it's best for all parties that saga comes to an end. Right, I'll get to my player ratings now, the ones I didn't get to do last night. Nicer ratings than we've seen recently, which is nice to do. Although saying that, the last few have been pretty good as well, obviously in the wins, but it's just nice to talk about victories now. 4 in a row for Arsenal. God, it felt like that was never going to be the case only a few weeks ago. So fair play to Mikel Arteta and his players for turning things around the way they have. Right, let's start. Bert Leno in goal. Brilliant late save from Leno to keep Arsenal in it. They would have been out of the cup had it not been for him. I was delighted to see him in the starting 11 instead of Runarsson. I've made that pretty clear recently. I thought he coped with everything pretty well. Leno did everything he had to do. I'm going to give Leno an 8 because he was just, as I said, he did everything he had to do and he made the big saves when he needed to. So an 8 for Leno. Cedric, thought he did all right. Thought he was a bit wasteful, certainly in the first half when it came to his crosses in the final third. Could have done better with those, but defended pretty well. I'm going to give him a 6. David Luiz and Pablo Mari, I thought were really good in the heart of the defence. Had a real battle against Andy Carroll, who is just so difficult to defend against. Obviously, Andy Carroll won a fair bit in the air as well, but Luiz and Mari coped with him really positively, I thought, and matched him. And I'm going to give them both a 7. I thought 2 really good performances, and I think Pablo Mari is just, he's just become a revelation in the last few weeks. And what Mikel Arteta is going to do now that Gabriel's back fit, with his centre back, is going to be really, really interesting, because Pablo Mari, it's going to be difficult to leave him out at the moment because he's been playing very, very well. So both those two get a 7. Kieran Tierney at left back, I'm going to give an 8, and I'm giving Kieran Tierney my man of the match. I know Smith Rowe got it officially on the TV last night, but I'm giving Tierney the man of the match. Set up Aubameyang for his second goal, non-stop up and down that left flank all night long. Always looked like probably the man who was going to create something for Arsenal. I thought he was great. Again, he gets my man of the match number with a rating of 8. El Neni, I'm going to give a 7. One really nice ball in the second half that sent Aubameyang away. Couldn't finish it, Aubameyang, but it was a good pass from El Neni. Nice to see him passing the ball forward and trying to create something. I thought he moved the ball pretty nicely throughout, so I'm going to give him a 7. Willock, I thought, suffered a little bit. He wasn't great. He had one good chance in the second half, a header that was saved. Kept going though, so credit to him, but I'm going to give him a 6. Same for Pepe, he gets a 6. Was lively, I thought, in the first half. Faded out of the game a little bit, but kept going. I think he played the 420 minutes, if my memory serves me right. I'm going to give Pepe a 6. Willian, I'm going to give a 4. Pretty lucky to get that, to be honest. I thought it was a really poor performance from Willian. Just offered absolutely nothing, and when a chance did arrive, he slashed at it wildly. Just disappointing. I've already touched on him, so he's getting a 4. Reece Nelson, I'm going to give a 5. I'm going to cut him a little bit slack. He wasn't great, Nelson, but you got to think he hasn't started in over a month, I think. He wasn't even expecting to start this game. Then at the last moment, he gets thrown into it, so he was pretty underprepared. So I'm going to give Nelson a 5. And Aubameyang, I'm going to give a 7. Kept going throughout, missed a couple of chances in normal time, but kept going, got his goal, which hopefully will continue to improve that confidence, which I'm pretty sure from looking at him in the last few games, that confidence is slowly coming back, and getting that goal is only going to help yesterday. So I'm going to give him a 7. Substitutes, I'm going to have to give them a mark because they made big, big differences. Mikel Arteta got his substitutions spot on. So the 4 that I'm going to give marks to are Saka, Smith Rowe, Xhaka and Lacazette. Saka, I'm going to give a 7. I thought he was great when he came on. Had a really good effort towards the end of the 90 minutes, which went just over. Would have been a fabulous goal. As usual, made a difference. He gets a 7. Smith Rowe gets an 8. Brilliant goal. Yes, he was. Well, he wasn't even fortunate. He was fortunate that VAR was there, but he should never have been given a red card in the first place. At the end of normal time, so he was rightly had that reprieved when the referee went and had a look at the monitor and got it taken back to a yellow card. He was great and scored his goal. He gets an 8 for me. Granit Xhaka, I thought, was brilliant as well. He played such a big part in that second goal with his ball through to Tierney. I'm going to give Xhaka an 8 because I thought he was pretty much hands down the best player on the pitch from the time he was on the pitch. I thought he was really, really impressive. And Lacazette set up Smith Rowe's goal. I'm going to give him a 7. Another positive display from Laka, having come on later on in the game. So those are my player ratings for that. And that's the end of today's video, looking back at what was a decent win in the end for Arsenal. The draw for the 4th and 5th round is on Monday at night, so we don't have to wait too long to find out how Arsenal's route to the latter stages may well pan out. Thank you for watching. Appreciate it. As always, please do enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Like I said, there is a press conference tomorrow morning with Mikel Arteta. I will try and do a video after that to discuss what he had to say and look over the big talking points that's come from it. Enjoy your weekend and what's left of your weekend, everyone, and I'll speak to you